Yo ho ho! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast that Keira Knightley doesn't want you to hear.
And Michael Flatley would be pretty upset too.
It's Monkeys and Playbills. I'm Paul DeGurse.
I'm Jillian Willems.
Welcome to the show where we discuss Broadway musicals that had runs of 100 performances or fewer on Broadway.
And what the heck happened?
What are we talking about today, Jill?
We're going to talk about fan favorite, just kidding, I don't think anyone's ever heard of it, The Pirate Queen.
I'd say possibly fan favorite. It's got a lineage. And once again, I think this has got to be someone's favorite musical.
It might be mine.
Much like a queen, it has noble ancestry. From the composing team, the powerhouse composing team, have written two of the most successful musicals of all time, Les Miserables and Miss Saigon.
Whew.
And also Martin Guerre, which we may talk about later on this podcast at some point. Let's dive in. Let's talk.
Previews began at the Hilton Theater March 6th, 2007. It opened on April 5th, 2007, and closed on June 17th, 2007, after 32 previews and 85 performances.
It's pretty brutal for a show like this from composers who are playing at this level. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of artistry, a lot of beautiful stuff in this musical. I'm really fascinated to get into this one. This is not a cut and dry case.
Certainly not. Should we play the synopsis game?
Okay. It's very funny that this podcast has evolved into me being the one who has to synopsize these. Because I'm famously, anyone who goes to shows with me knows, in general, I have a hard time just keeping track of what's going on. I get distracted by sets and lights and music and costumes, and I'm just as much about the experience and what I'm feeling as what's going on with the plot. So with this one especially, there's a lot of plot. It's very plot heavy. About halfway through Act 2, I was trying really carefully, and my watching partners were trying to make sure that I was keeping track.
Yeah.
And about halfway through Act 2, I started to get lost, and I had meant to go back and review, but I didn't.
I kind of love that, though. Like, this is what makes it fun for me.
So what you just heard was my instant realization that...
Like, oh no, I have to synopsize.
Yeah. So let's synopsize The Pirate Queen. Top of the show. We've got Recorder. We've got a dark stage. We've got a couple, right? There's two people, and they're clearly in love. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, boom, an enormous overture kicks in, and there's a pirate ship. And Stephanie J. Block is the daughter of a pirate captain. Mm-hmm. She wants to be a pirate as well. She's not comfortable staying at home in Ireland.
Yes.
It's very important. These are Irish pirates.
Yeah.
That's very significant to this show for a couple of reasons. It's significant, A, because it's a show about actual historical events about the Irish resistance against England's colonization.
Yes.
And it's also features Irish dancing super prominently, incredibly prominently. So much so that, spoiler alert for later on in this podcast, two of the producers of this show are the creators of Riverdance.
Which I have to tell you, I saw on tour.
Did you actually?
When I was like 7 years old. Riverdance with Michael Flatley toured here.
No.
And my parents took me and my sister to see it. And it was one of the best experiences of my whole life. We'll get into it later, but I just wanted to drop that little nugget in there.
All right. So we're on a pirate ship, and Stephanie J. Block's dad is like, no, you can't be on this ship. You're a woman.
Yep.
And she's like, yo, ho, ho. Nope, I'm a pirate. And the ship's called the Pirate Queen.
It's not a kid's show, by the way.
It is not a kid's show.
Even though it sounds like
no
it
one
might
says
be.
yo, ho, ho. I just love pirates.
Yes.
And I got really excited because the first 15 minutes are just pirates existing on this pirate ship.
Yeah.
And they're swinging around on this set that we're going to talk about, and they're bouncing around, and they're singing a cappella anthemic music. The first 15 minutes, I was like, do I love this show? I think I love this show. Stephanie J. Block loves a man.
Yep.
Loves a man named Hadley Fraser is the actor's name.
Yeah, that's the actor.
Yeah.
I think it's Tiernan or
Loves
something.
Tiernan.
Right? Tiernan or...
Okay, so how do we get here? Because we get to England at some point. Because Queen Elizabeth is a player in this. And the English are trying to invade Ireland.
Yes.
No, the pirates attack an English ship.
Oh,
right?
that's right. Or they are attacked, maybe?
They're attacked but they fight off the pirates.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Stephanie J. Block is especially fearsome. And so the English are like, there's this pirate queen on the ship, the Pirate Queen, and she's really badass, and that could be trouble. So they try to invade Ireland, and both this clan, Stephanie J. Block's clan of pirates, and another clan of pirates, the two clan leaders, Stephanie J. Block's dad and another person, are like, okay, to consolidate power, to hold tight against the English, my daughter needs to marry your son.
Right.
So Stephanie J. Block is like, no, I love Tiernan,
Yes.
but I guess because of the world that we're living in, the class system that we're living in, I'm stuck. I have to marry this other man from this other clan.
Who sucks.
Who sucks. He's a
Yeah.
tool. He has a enormous codpiece.
Yeah.
Which is how you can tell he's a tool.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a metaphor.
It's a metaphor because he's a big dick.
Yeah.
So we boot around like that for a while where he's kind of a coward and isn't a very good leader, but Stephanie J. Block's incredible.
Yes.
But people don't always pay attention to her because she's a woman. But then she
Yeah.
rallies all the other women of the clan and they kill a bunch of the Englishmen and it's badass.
In like a really sexy, cool way.
They're sexy, but then they stab.
It's like
Yeah.
probably my favorite part
Yeah,
of the whole
absolutely.
musical, if I'm being honest.
Like it started and they were like being sexy and I was like, oh, is this going to be this might be a problematic. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then stab.
Totally not. Yeah.
So they do that and then Stephanie J. Block's dad dies and that's the end of Act 1.
That's right.
He passes away and makes Stephanie J. Block queen of the pirates, queen of the clans.
Yes. Yeah, much to the chagrin of her
Of Big Dick Boy.
husband,
Yeah.
Codpiece, whose name is actually, I don't know.
Codpiece. He's a big dick boy, is what he is.
Big dick energy.
So, we're in Act 2 now, and this is where things get a little foggy. Believe it or not, all that plot happened in Act 1. And this show's actually not even that long. This show's 2:10 or something,
Yeah.
all in, which is surprising for the makers of Les Mis.
That's true.
Famously 4 hours in its first preview or something like that. So, Act 2, Stephanie J. Block and Codpiece, they have a baby. Stephanie J. Block and Codpiece have a baby.
Yeah, they do.
And that's very exciting. That's very cool. And they get attacked by the English. And Stephanie J. Block, even though she has literally just had a baby, crawls into the fight
like claws
with a
her
sword.
way up.
Literally
Yeah.
crawls on the ground and is a total badass and slays all these pirates. And then Codpiece is grumpy. He's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You're a woman. Why are you behaving like a man?
Right. Even though he like ran and hid. Or
Yeah, because
something.
he sucks.
He didn't do anything.
He's terrible, and Stephanie J. Block is incredible.
Yeah.
And Stephanie J. Block says, actually, there's in a remarkably good idea, a 3-year probationary period on this marriage,
Yes.
where I can just call it off. So
I kind of love that.
What a good idea!
It's a cool rule.
Yeah. I'm going to exercise that, and we're no longer married, and I'm the queen of the pirates.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh,
Because I have the ring.
because I have the ring.
Yeah, that daddy gave me.
And he's kind of like, oh, that sucks. Goodbye.
He takes it pretty well.
Like,
actually.
all told. Yeah.
Considering he's like so awful through most of the play, and then it's like, oh, all right, I guess we're done then.
Also happening in Act 2, Queen Elizabeth is trying to conquer England, and she's got like a second in command who's also a big dick.
Yes, Richard, actual big dick, Richard.
Yeah, exactly. This is a historical person. These are all historical people. It's
I
worth
meant
noting.
because the nickname for Richard is Dick. But
Oh, I gotcha. Yes,
that too.
Big Richard. And there's this weird thing where Queen Elizabeth is like, if you conquer England and polish off the Pirate Queen, we get to have sex.
Paul, corrections corner. She's trying to conquer Ireland.
Shoot, I'm sorry.
Being the Queen of England, she's kind of already got that place unlocked.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got to conquer Ireland, or if you, Big Richard, if you conquer Ireland, Big Richard, if you conquer Ireland, you can sire the next King of England or whatever
Right.
it is, which is a very bizarre pseudo-sexual power dynamic.
Right. And coming from the virginal queen, this is a huge
Yeah.
offer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he goes off and does that, something. The Pirate Queen and the English Queen end up just talking together. And I looked it up. This is, apparently this actually happened where they
the
sat
meeting.
down for this meeting, the two heads of these countries, and no one really knows what happened there.
Exactly.
But somehow the Pirate Queen made a case for Ireland's independence or semi-independence.
Right.
And that's kind of the end. It kind of ends with a "Do you hear the people sing?" moment.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
The only kind of major plot point I think that you've missed is that Grania, Stephanie J. Block's character, gets captured and put in prison for 7 years, which is hard to conceptualize on stage in 2 hours.
I forgot about that. That's very important.
Yeah, and I think the thing that Queen Elizabeth finds amazing about it is that Tiernan comes to offer himself in her place as prisoner so that she can be with her son.
It's a true love type thing.
Yeah, and so Elizabeth, who doesn't understand men in the sense that she doesn't understand how a man could do something so selflessly for a woman without ulterior motives, then that's when the conversation, I think, happens.
That's right.
I think that's the catalyst for it, but
I think so.
I could be wrong.
Daff, can you remember?
One more important piece of information. Codpiece McFuckface also betrays the Irish.
Yes.
That's right.
Like, there's a whole big like Comanche battle where like the English and the Irish are like going at it, and then Grace is captured.
That's when she's captured.
And then she's all like, "How could you do this, Codpiece McFuckface?"
Yeah,
Says,
I'm the mother of your child. She doesn't say
and then
that,
he
but-
says, "My name is Codpiece McFuckface. What were you expecting?"
Yeah,
Totally.
I handled our breakup really well, but I was being vindictive.
There we go.
Scheming.
I do remember this. Yep. This all makes sense. I got bogged down in Act 2 especially because I got distracted and started looking up, wow, this is fascinating and not the way I would expect a musical to go. Does this have some historical context?
Right.
So I had one eye on actually reading about this. It's really an incredible story.
It's
based
so
much on history.
fascinating.
What's Stephanie J. Block's, what's the real life person she's based on again?
Grania O'Malley.
Grania O'Malley, who is, it's an incredible story. I would encourage everyone to look it up. There's a book that detail the story of Grania O'Malley. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding of the Pirate Queen, having seen it once.
Yeah.
If we wanted to license the Pirate Queen, yo ho ho,
Yeah.
what would it be?
So on Stage Agent, it says Grace O'Malley, which is Stephanie J. Block's character, is the heir to the O'Malley clan and proves herself worthy through her bravery on the seas and skill in swordplay. In a time when women were expected to learn skills to make a good wife in the homestead, Grace defies her father and earns the title the Pirate Queen, inspiring men and women alike to follow her. When the English begin to attack and subjugate Ireland, only Grace has the strength and intelligence to negotiate peace with the powerful Queen Elizabeth I, with a score by Claude Michel Schonberg and Alain Boublil. Steeped in Irish traditions and powerful ballads, the Pirate Queen is both timeless history and epic romance for the stage.
Can I change my answer to that? That's much more concise and
I liked your version.
And I think does it justice, because there's, I'll say it one more time, as we get into both the good and the bad of this. This is a really powerful story.
Yeah.
It's really cool, a really fascinating piece of history. And, hell, let's just dive in.
Let's do it. Book by Alain Boublil, Claude Michel Schonberg, and Richard Malpe Jr. Music by Claude Michel Schonberg. Lyrics by Alain Boublil, Richard Malpe Jr., and John Dempsey, who was brought on later. Music was orchestrated, and the vocal arrangements and the music direction all by Julian Kelly.
I saw that, yeah.
Based on the novel Grania, She-King of the Irish Seas by Morgan Llewellyn. And it's important that we mention that Grania is the Gaelic name.
Yes.
But they refer to her or call her Grace in the musical.
Totally.
So if we use those sometimes maybe interchangeably, I try to stick with Grania. But if we slip into Grace, that's the same character.
Absolutely. So, I would like to propose that we do book and lyrics in the same, because this musical is almost entirely sung through.
Woo!
There are 3 major Broadway players.
I think the only name that I'm like, oh, I recognize this name, but I don't know a lot about them and their work is Richard Malpe Jr.
Richard Malpe Jr. is a super fascinating dude. As both a composing team with David Shire.
Right, Malpe and Shire.
Malpe and Shire. He wrote both Broadway and off-Broadway musicals.
Right.
Some pretty successful, like Baby. I think Baby was their first one to hit Broadway.
Oh, sure, okay.
Richard Malpe Jr. really made his name, not as a lyricist though, but as a director and kind of producer and just an artistic force behind shows.
Oh, cool.
I mean, obviously him and David Shire wrote Big as well, which we're going to talk about someday in this podcast, which was another enormous flop. Big, enormous flop. That's very funny. And it's a fascinating show. They're a fascinating composer team. They write very interesting music and lyrics.
Right.
Another big one is Ring of Fire.
Oh, cool. Right, that's right. I did read that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was the driving creative force behind conceiving and directing Ring of Fire. a lot of the time it's conceived and directed by.
Got it.
He's been involved with Bublé and Schoenberg before through work on Miss Saigon. This is when Richard Malpe Jr. was at the height of his power, Closer Than Ever had just gone very well, and did some work on the English translation of Miss Saigon. The other two things that he conceived and directed that are very significant are Ain't Misbehavin' and Fosse.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. And brought on for this to do the English translation and kind of show doctor the show a little bit as well.
Right.
So what can you tell us about the development process of this, Jill?
So I watched this really fascinating, I think it was about 45 minutes long, documentary on YouTube about the making of The Pirate Queen. And they follow it from like the first Chicago out-of-town workshop trial thing. And so that was October and November of 2006. So not too long before they opened on Broadway. Like it's a very quick turnaround time.
Yeah.
So the team that was there in Chicago kind of changed a little bit as it went to Broadway.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was the lyrics in the book.
Yeah. It seems like the change was trying to Hail Mary save the show.
Exactly. Exactly. And you can kind of see, we'll talk about this a little more in depth with our opinions on the lyrics, but you can really see that people had come in and tried to help, basically. Like it was a bit of like pastiche feeling, I guess, because there were so many contributors.
Yeah.
So between the change from Chicago to the actual Broadway production, a few people were brought on in different ways, creatively, to help.
It's a really interesting book/lyrics, and when we're talking about that, we're also talking about just the wider structure of the piece.
Yes.
Because there's a ton of plot. It doesn't do what both Les Mis and Miss Saigon have a ton of plot as well. Mm-hmm. And they make it work so effectively by having these moments where huge amounts of action happen and huge amounts of information are dumped.
Yes.
And then pausing for 3 to 5 minutes so that Fantine can be seconds away from death.
Right.
And sing an enormous...
For 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes. That push and pull of time is really what makes Les Mis work. So even if you haven't quite followed exactly the nuance of what has happened historically, you can connect really clearly to Fantine or Jean Valjean or Eponine or Cosette or Marius or whoever the case may be, and what they're feeling emotionally. And this show, I think the source material is right up there with Les Mis as far as value goes.
Yeah, it's very compelling.
But it goes really hard on the information and doesn't, in my opinion, go in hard enough on the emotional context.
It's all just a plot dump, maybe. Yep. And so we're not connecting to it as deeply. Is that kind of what you're...
That's what I'm saying, especially because it's already a translation. You can't rely quite as much, at least on English audiences, especially not audiences who aren't super bright when it comes to plot like me, to follow every detail of the plot. So if your whole thing hinges on deep understanding of the plot, you're going to leave a lot of your audience in trouble.
Yes.
That's my major complaint.
Yeah.
What about you? Where's your head?
The lyrics feel really clunky, and I don't want to fault these lyricists and composers because their first language is not English. It's French. And so a part of me is like, I wonder what it would have sounded like, even from a phrasing perspective, in French.
When you listen to Les Mis and you listen to these kind of recit info dump sections, that's where you really hear the translation. Phrases that are kind of a little unbalanced.
Yeah, like syllabically, it just like doesn't quite check out.
Absolutely. It reminds me of any kind of operatic translation.
There's like one song in this that I would consider a triumph.
Yeah, as far as like I Dreamed a Dream.
Yeah.
Let's hear this at a talent show for the next 50 years.
Yeah. Lyrically speaking.
Yeah.
Because musically, I think we could make a different case for this altogether.
Yeah.
But lyrically, I think there's just one song that I feel like really captures it and stands alone. It's the woman one. Do you know which one I mean? Like right at the beginning where she's like, I'm a woman. I don't know. It's so wrong. But she says the word woman a lot. Sprouts it a bit. Yeah. So lyrically, I feel like that one is the I Dreamed a Dream moment where you're like, oh, I can get on board with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even looking up this show on YouTube, like you have to wade through a lot of audition cuts of that song to get
Absolutely.
to anything that actually was from the 2007
Totally,
performance.
totally, because it clearly survived.
There's no question that all of the creators involved in this are masters of their craft. This show tells a very complex story, tells it effectively. This is not amateur hour, you know what I mean? This is some
Yeah.
some pros doing great work. And I think maybe they got to the end of the Chicago tryouts and it's too late to rewrite.
Yeah.
So they went more all in on making the plot clearer.
Right. Maybe they just added more fighting, more sword fights.
Because I love
They're
the
like,
sword fights.
"We
I
just-
love
there's
this show
nothing
when it's
else to be
pirates.
done. Let's just
Yeah.
make them fight and dance."
I mean, the book itself, there's like 3 lines of spoken dialogue in this whole piece.
Yeah. I have a really funny comment from YouTube that I think I should bring up now.
Yes, very
because
good.
it falls under the lyrics and adaptation kind of a thing.
Please.
So as we've mentioned previously, it's based on the true story of Grania O'Malley
Yep.
and the O'Malley clan.
Absolutely.
And this guy on YouTube named Jim
Oh,
wrote in the comments of the video we watched of this production, his wife is a Grace O'Malley reenactor,
oh, cool. What a cool thing to
which
be.
I was like,
Yeah,
tell me more.
absolutely. What? I didn't know that was an option.
I didn't know that was a thing. I need to go see her perform. Like, I
Yeah.
need to know about this. And so he says that they went to a library to watch this production because she was very interested. She's researched Grania O'Malley
Sure.
extensively, obviously,
Yeah.
and knows every bit about her life. And so they thought, oh, there's a musical. Cool. We'll go
Yeah.
to the library and we'll watch it. And she was apparently very disappointed in in the liberties, the artistic license that they took with the story. So I empathize with that feeling because I think, like many people who feel very strongly about one specific thing and you find out it's going to be a musical, there's excitement because
Yeah.
you hope that they will honor it, right?
Yeah.
You hope that they will do this story justice and this person justice. And then if you know a lot about them and that doesn't happen, that could be really disappointing. So my heart goes out to Jim's wife.
I think I'd be frustrated as well. I don't think you're winning many new fans. Although maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm a new fan. I'm after having watched this, I'm like, oh, what a cool story. What a fascinating piece of history. I think it's awesome. But in general, I'm not sure there's many people who would go in not having much sympathy for the plight of women and of the Irish
Yes.
at this time,
Right.
who would leave going, oh, now I understand.
Yeah. Okay, so all of this to say,
Yes.
out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys are we going to give these lyrics concept adaptation thing?
That's a very tough question for this
I
one.
agree.
Wow.
I feel like this actually might be one of the big issues with the show.
I agree.
I'm gonna land at a 4.5 because I did leave feeling like I want to learn more about Grania O'Malley, but I don't want to learn about her through this show. So I think lyrically and conceptually, that's the problem.
I'm going to go a fair bit higher.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to pitch you on 6 because even though I agree that the book and the lyrics, if we're going to identify a problem with this show, are the problem, just to be able to take this much information
Right.
and turn it into something that is watchable and compelling and interesting, even if it's not extremely all of those things.
Right.
It certainly doesn't succeed wholeheartedly at all of those things, but it doesn't fail at any of them. It's not a disaster by any means. So I'm going to say 6 because I admire the artistry, even if it's clear that something critical didn't click.
That's very nice of you, Paul.
Fair enough. I'm feeling good. It's spring. The sun is out. I'm feeling charitable.
Should we talk about the music?
Let's talk about the music.
Wow, I love when they sang empty chairs at empty tables.
I loved when they sang Red and Black.
Yeah. Red, the blood of angry pirates.
They're a big fan of explaining what colors mean. these
Yeah,
guys.
they love it.
While you're in a
Yeah.
cafe or a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the Gaston number was cool too.
Oh, you mean the Master of the House number?
Master of the House
Yep.
/ Gaston. Very good.
I liked when they actually had a reprise of Look Down, with an actual Gavroche.
Oh my gosh. And he didn't speak. So musically, Paul.
Yes.
We get a lot of echoes of
Yep.
their of Les Mis. I'll just say it. I'll
Yep.
call it what it is.
Absolutely.
So many echoes to Les Mis.
Yep.
I would say of the musicals, the epics that they've written,
Yep.
that's the one that it calls to the most.
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't speak for you, but I get the impression that we both actually really enjoy that 80s booming
Love it.
poperetta sound.
Oh, I'm in for it. It's
Right,
hard
because
to,
some
hard
of
not to
the
love.
shows we've collaborated on,
Yeah.
you lean into that a little,
Absolutely.
or find it in places it doesn't exist.
Musical theater wouldn't be what it was today without Les Mis,
Mm-hmm.
without Bublé and Schomburg.
Yep.
And it's great. There's a reason for that. Les Mis gets because Les Mis is so popular,
Mm-hmm.
it gets dissected and discussed with a greater level of scrutiny than a lot of shows do.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, the flaws are on display a lot more than a lot of shows. Mm-hmm. But I think if we can separate ourselves from the fact that everyone and their father has a opinion on Les Mis and on the
that's so
function of
true.
Les Mis, it's an incredible show. It's
love
fantastic.
it. I love Les Mis. I love it. I wore out the 10th anniversary VHS, and then
absolutely.
I wore out the 25th anniversary DVD. Like,
No question. Yeah.
I can't help myself.
Yeah,
The image in my head is the Les Mis score,
yeah,
and they take a bucket of water, and they pour it on the Les Mis score,
yeah,
and then the notes sort of blend
yeah.
together, and then they use it to write this show.
What I put is that it's like Les Mis meets Celtic Women.
Oh, sure.
You ever watched Celtic Women? That it's like this concert experience similar to Riverdance.
Isn't it like a trio?
It's
and
a
one
quartet.
fiddles?
There's three,
Oh, it's a
three
quartet.
singers
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
woman who fiddles and dances.
Totally, very familiar.
Yeah. And it's a very cool thing. It's my dream
Love,
job
love,
is to be
love.
the conductor for Celtic Women or for a Celtic Women type thing.
Yes.
Because it's just incredible. Anyway, this show is very much that vibe
Mm-hmm.
because there's, like there's these synth pads that create a lot of space.
Yes.
It evokes like mist Irish dew or whatever. And there's recorder. There's like Titanic style recorder left
Yep.
and right.
Harp everywhere.
Harp everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love in this score. There's a lot of a cappella singing. This is a difference from the Les Mis score that I really like.
Yes, in texture and
Yeah, this is a new texture that's not from Les Mis that I really love is these a cappella style chants and
Yes.
sings a lot of it's in unison or like just one harmony part.
Yeah.
And I think that's very fascinating and very new.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they do get into these ballads, things like the Stephanie J. Block Act
Yeah.
1 ballad or the Love Duet or something, it is very much that Les Mis texture. And I think that's great. I'm here for it. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do it.
I agree with like so much of what you're saying. I actually think that those ballads may be the downfall
Fair enough.
of their score because there's so much air in them. Their phrasing tends to be very long
Yeah.
in most ballads that they write, which
Totally.
again, not a bad thing, but if your show is 80% ballads,
Yeah.
you lose me. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what happens here.
You know what else I agree completely. What else I miss as I'm thinking about it, about what makes Les Mis work? I miss the screaming tenors.
Oh man, yeah.
Like, Les Mis works because of Jean Valjean off the top,
Yes.
but also because both in Look Down and in At the End of the Day, you've got these screaming tenors and then screaming sopranos, and at the end
so
of the day,
good.
nailing it to the back of the wall. You're like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally some of the world's best singers doing this. I think maybe the vocal arranging is a problem in this, where it doesn't showcase elasticity
Yes.
in the same way that makes Les Mis so interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree with that. And do you feel like, because one of my favorite parts about Les Mis is that it's a collection of some of the best singers ever singing as loud as they can
Yeah.
in really nice ways.
Yeah.
And we only get that maybe 2 times in this show.
I agree. And I think they give that to Stephanie J. Block. I think we'll get to it, but Stephanie J. Block
Yes.
is outstanding in this show. At least this is my opinion, we'll coordinate, but she sounds incredible. She
Yeah.
sounds absurd.
Oh, yeah.
And is singing in an intense tessitura with an incredible sound. I wanted to see the rest of the people do that.
Yep.
You know?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. So Ben Brantley is back, everyone.
Yes,
Welcome.
hey Ben.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ben, you want me to read it for you? Okay, I will read. I'll read your review for you.
He's shy.
Ben's shy.
Yeah,
He doesn't like
it's
to
okay.
appear in person.
So Ben Brantley called the Pirate Queen's music loud and restless,
Sure.
which it's hard for me to know about the loud part. Obviously, we weren't
Yep.
in the space, but I could see that. He also wrote, quote, "There's not a ballad or choral number in The Pirate Queen that doesn't sound like a garbled echo of a more stirring tune from Les Mis, given the requisite touch of green via musical accents of penny whistle, Ilian pipes, and Gaelic harps."
Not wrong, Ben.
Not wrong.
Yeah, that's...
But it's also maybe not bad the way that he thinks it is.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good
because
way to
he's
put
kind
it.
of like not interested in that aspect of it. But like, it sounds to me like you and I both agree that that's something we actually like about it, is that new texture.
Yeah. There's this insistence that I found especially in music theater. I've spoken with people who talk about this, about even like luminaries like Stephen Sondheim or
Yes.
Lin-Manuel Miranda or Bublé and Schoenberg, who I would call luminaries, where if they repeat a texture at all, it's hacky.
Yes,
You
I
have
was
to
thinking about
this idea that you
all
have
day.
to keep on creating something totally new.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's fair. I'm not sure that's
Yeah.
a fair thing to say, especially in the case of you've done something like Les Mis and you've told this epic historical drama very well. You've cracked it. You've cracked the code.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you use a bunch of the tools that you found
Yes.
to tell another historical story?
If it ain't broke.
If it ain't broke,
Yeah.
that's not to say that innovation should be discouraged, but it seems like with musical theater composers especially, it's such a fine, fickle line between your own voice and
Yes.
they're just doing the same thing over and over again.
I could not agree more. That is something that I've been reflecting on, especially through us talking about on this podcast. We're seeing some repeat composers come up, or
Yeah.
we're, talking about people that otherwise have had major hits, and we're wondering, what happened. I think you're hitting the nail on the head when you say, like, I don't know, it's hard, but I like to think about that, and I like to keep that in the back of my mind when we're talking about these composers.
I'd like to rate this twice. I'd like to rate this music twice.
Okay.
Once, based on the context that we know, and once, try to imagine that Les Mis doesn't exist.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
I love
Okay.
that. Let's play this. So, based on everything we know,
Yep.
I will give this music a 5.5.
Yep. I land exactly the same. I was going to say 5. Knowing that these
Yeah.
are two of the most successful musical theater composers of all time, wrote a score that is both complicated and musically sound, but everyone can listen to, even people with no background in musical theater.
Yep.
Knowing that they did that, this just isn't up to that standard. So it's got to be a 5.
Yeah. Okay.
What if Les Mis didn't exist?
If Les Mis didn't exist, and this was maybe my first introduction,
Yeah, this is the first show they ever wrote.
8.
Absolutely, right? It's
It's an 8.
I agree completely.
And it tugs on my Scottish heartstrings a little bit because
Yeah.
sonically, we're like, I recognize this in my soul.
Yeah.
And so I feel connected to it, I think, in a weird way that I don't often in musical theater because Brigadoon doesn't do it even. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Daphne, what do you think?
I had the same experience. Like, my family is English Scottish, and even though like I'm not descended directly from like this culture, something about hearing like a pan flute or a recorder and seeing like these crazy flailing legs, I'm like, take me home.
I know. I'm Scottish. It's like a completely different everything. But for some reason, there's a connection there, and it cannot be denied.
So it's so fascinating. It's almost like it would have been better for them to write this under a pseudonym or something. You know what I mean? Rather than helping, their celebrity composer names hurt this show.
Yeah.
Is kind of the conclusion we have to draw. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, wow. I love that game, Paul.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. It's helpful too.
Yeah.
To be like, in different context.
Final thoughts. The end of Act 1 is bomb. It's great. And all
The
of
funeral.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. And all of the Queen Elizabeth songs suck. I don't like that texture. That's bad.
Yeah. Boo, throw them
Don't
out,
like
trash
that.
them.
No. Sorry to anyone for whom that is their favorite part of the show /
Yeah.
their favorite part in all of musical theater history.
Yeah.
You can contact us on Instagram
Yeah.
and YouTube.
Yeah, do that because I'd love to just chat with you about why. I'm curious.
All right. Should we talk about the direction and choreo?
Oh yeah. Directed by Frank Galati, otherwise known as the director of Ragtime and Seussical. I mean, variety, right? The Irish dance choreographer was Carol Levy-Joyce, who also did Riverdance on Broadway, so I think understands Broadway audiences, but more so understands Irish dancing. The associate choreographer was Rachel Bress. Musical staging by Graciela Danielle, who, I mean, if you've never heard her name, please do a Google, literally has done everything. And then fight direction by J. Stephen White. And I really wanted to call attention to the fight as its own entity in this show.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get started. Direction, Paul, go.
There's a lot to like in this direction, and some stuff that really frustrated me, but I'm not sure who to put the blame for the frustrating things on.
Okay,
So-
maybe I can help you.
Yeah. I liked a lot about the direction was that I felt a lot of empathy with a lot of the characters.
Yes.
I was really connected to Grace throughout the whole piece. I'm cheering for her. This is both the strength of the direction and of Stephanie J. Block being incredible.
Yes.
And so between Grace and Tiernan, I'm feeling that romance between Grace and her father, the Pirate King.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
feeling,
that's nice.
a lot of good. These are moments that are landing, and these are moments that this show would be a disaster without those. Already
Right.
you're having trouble mining those moments out of such a packed-in story.
So the relationships are clear.
Relationships are super clear.
Great. That's a huge feat, I think,
Yep.
for a lot of directors and actors as well. So that's excellent. Okay.
There's a lot of staging where, and it didn't, and I'm questioning whether it's the musical stager or the director, because it
Yeah.
wasn't the choreo staging or the fights.
I think you're onto something.
But there was
Yeah.
just something about the way people were positioned on stage or moving gently around the stage in action that was really bizarre.
There was a lot of squishy slow motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Which I think actually can be incredibly useful, but
Yeah.
when used sparingly.
Yep.
And we see an abundance of it in this one.
Yeah.
And so my gut tells me that that's the musical staging by Graciela Danielle. Again, a late bring-in. So she was not attached to the Chicago trial, and they brought her in, I think, toward either the end of the out-of-town trial or right before they went to Broadway. So maybe there's something there, too, that you're seeing, like a lack of cohesive physical storytelling because she was brought in so late.
Showing that we have to conclude that they're what they found at the Chicago tryout. We've seen evidence of this already. What they found was some serious problems that needed to be fixed before New York.
Yeah, and I guess one of those problems, which is really smart of them to bring in someone who has Broadway choreo experience
Absolutely.
and staging experience, because there are going to be holes that maybe an Irish dancer who doesn't have like musical theater training would not see.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's a very smart choice to bring her in, but maybe when they brought her in was the issue.
This is just going off the top of my head. We're coming around to Riverdance again. I've never seen Riverdance in person. I wish I would.
really
I wish I
should.
could. I would
Oh,
love
man.
to. I can't wait till I have the opportunity to do
Yeah.
so. But it's staged like a concert, right?
Very much rock concert with
Yeah.
just dancing.
So having to deal with just the actual physical like levels, you know what I
Yes.
mean? And I mean levels both vertically and horizontally
Yeah.
of a theater piece, and to create that kind of world and that kind of physical space wouldn't necessarily be something that the staging team was ready for off the top.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. That's a beast.
Yeah.
You know, to try to integrate all of these different things into one show.
So where's your head at for the direction?
So the direction I found was actually very operatic, where
Yeah.
it would be like, let's move when no one's singing and then stand and
Then plant.
sing.
Yeah.
The old park and bar.
Or as they say.
Yeah. Which I find if a person's strong suit is not acting and they're forced to stand and deliver, you see the flaws of their performance more clearly. Whereas if you give them things to do and they send their energy into action,
Absolutely.
it actually allows them to open up and to really tell the story. So
Yeah.
I think maybe those glimpses were missing in some moments.
So it works incredibly well for Stephanie J. Block, where just this energy flows through her and
Yep.
out her mouth, and it's the sound and the energy and everything is great. But
Absolutely.
maybe doesn't work quite as well for some of the other performers.
Exactly, and I would say that it's mainly just the people who don't have full arcs. So it would be like the soloists, for example. There's a woman who sings, she's sort of like, not a town crier, but almost like the mother of this clan, right?
She's like some kind of matriarch.
Yes, the matriarch of this clan, and she will come in and sing, and she sings beautifully, but I think there's not a lot happening because she's just been told to stand and sing.
Yep.
I'm a big believer in give him something to do.
Yeah.
So that's my hot take on the direction. And I think actually that's what Ben Brantley thought too.
Yeah, totally.
That he said that Mr. Galati's staging tends to step on what should be breathtaking climaxes or curtain lines. And in parentheses writes, I was never sure in the death scenes when or even if characters had really died. So it's like there's just like a lack of clarity in some of those moments. So that's the direction.
On one hand, the choreo is such a separate thing. On the other hand, this piece is such a unified structure in that regard.
I think to me, it makes the most sense to do direction and musical staging together and then to talk about the Irish dancing separately. Yeah, you know what, why not? Let's mention it. Let's talk about it now.
The fight direction's awesome.
I loved it.
It's so good.
I am a person who, you know how sometimes people go to see like a chorus line and they're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. It's so amazing. Look at them all dancing. I feel that about fight related. I'm like, I am so amazed. This takes so much focus and attention. This person, these people are so gifted and work so hard. Like I could never say anything bad about fight direction unless it's unsafe. Like that's literally the only thing I would ever feel like wouldn't work. And none of this was unsafe to me. It was all really incredible.
I'm inclined to agree. Between that and the gymnastics as well. A lot of this fight direction goes hand in hand with some pretty impressive physicality that I would define as like gymnastic style physicality. Yeah. Lots of swinging and climbing.
Yes.
We'll get to it in we'll get to it in the set, but there's the first 15 minutes of this show take place on a pirate ship, and this set is incredible, and like I think the first 15 minutes of this show might be one of my favorite musicals.
Yeah, like it's utterly incredible because it's all the things that are just breathtaking to watch.
It evokes for me, like, have you ever been to like Disney World or Universal Studios?
Yeah, sure. Those really immersive.
I'm thinking of like the Indiana Jones experience or something like that, where it's a lot of like rappelling and fight choreo and just strapping young men rappelling from the ceiling. It's just, that was the first 15 minutes of this show,
and I love it. Can't get enough.
Love it, and the fights continue on in that regard. Like you said, there's a moment where the women like go to seduce the English men, but then instead of seducing them at the last minute, stab them instead. And
I love it.
It's really cool. Yeah. It's really effective. So maybe is that maybe it?
I think so. In terms of like staging.
Musical staging. Yeah. Once again, there's whole things in the Queen's Court in England. And who cares about that? That's very boring and hard to remember.
Boo.
It is. They're just walking around in these big dresses, and I guess that's kind of cool, but
is it though?
There's that moment that I didn't love. I love the idea of Grace and Queen Elizabeth, this real historical event where they had this conversation.
Oh, you mean the confrontation?
Like basically,
Valjean at last, right?
But no,
like
but they do that bit where they put them behind this curtain,
right,
to discuss, and they play it with all the ladies in waiting or whatever leaning in and trying to listen. That was dumb. I don't know about that. What did you think of that?
I don't mind that. Whatever. As far as the Queen moments, that's like the least offensive one to me.
Right.
All right, let's give it a grade.
Direction, musical staging, fight choreo. Where are you going to rate?
Okay, so all of them together, I think the fighting really like amps up my score for the other two.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm at about a 7 monkeys out of 10 Playbills.
Oh, that's a good rating.
But it's mostly because the fighting like bumped it up by like 2 points.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd probably be at a 5.5.
I'd be at a 5.5, and then the fighting, especially the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a 7 feels great.
Great.
Let's do a 7. All right. Now, don't.
Let's talk about the Lord of the Dead.
All legs, and heads.
All legs.
Yeah.
So many circles.
So much stomping.
I love it. I literally could. Oh my gosh, I could watch hours and hours of Irish dancing.
Have you ever seen the video from Eurovision? That was the first introduction of Riverdance.
I've never watched the video, but I know that that's where like Riverdance kind of began. Was Michael Flatley in that performance?
Was he ever?
I'm obsessed with Michael Flatley. Like he might have been
so
my second crush after Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
I believe it. Yeah.
Like,
so.
it was like, oh, JTT, cool.
That's a
oh,
big
Michael Flatley,
That's a big
though.
leap to make
I know.
from babyface Jonathan Taylor Thomas to sweaty, shirtless.
I don't know.
Irish
It was that V, the deep V. Like, it was just too much.
That's a woman's crush there.
Woman's crush. I grew up real quick. What can I say? Yeah, I don't know. There's
I love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's so athletic. It's so incredible. The artistry that it takes, the precision, the strength. I mean, I come from a Highland dance background, which
Yep.
is very different, and people often confuse the two.
Totally.
But again, it's like there's something in my soul that connects with those styles of dance.
In your opinion, is it used organically in this?
No.
Interesting.
And I don't care.
Right.
Like, I
Cool.
don't care
Very
at
good.
all. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say that. There's a couple moments where I think it kind of happens in a nice way.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, great, we naturally transition into this. Like the christening, I think there's like a move into the Irish dancing. And
That'd
even
be
in
the
the
big one for
pub,
me.
I don't hate it. I think
don't
that's
either.
very organic too. But
Yeah.
in the funeral, they do some dancing. And then they incorporate the dancing into the bows, which I feel a little iffy on. I'm not a huge fan of doing that personally.
Yeah.
I would
Show's
rather
done.
the
Let's be
bows
done.
be just bows.
Yeah.
But again, to each their
Especially
own.
for a show like this. This isn't friggin' Mamma Mia, you know what I mean? Where
Right.
We told a historical event. Let's.
And it was long. Yeah, let's get out of this theater. Buy me
Yeah.
a drink, will ya?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know. Give me all the Irish
Yeah.
dance. I love it. I want to talk really quickly about something that fascinated me in the
Yes.
documentary was the way that they used sound in relation to these dancers' feet.
Okay.
It's really, from a technical perspective, it's
Yeah.
really fascinating. So maybe this will transition us smoothly into the design.
Yes.
But
Yes.
they talked about how they have, I was going to call it a microchip, but they have a way to identify which dancer, where they are on stage, so that they can move the sound, like the mics, to where that person is, so that no matter where you are, you're a soloist. It's mapping. They called it like mapping or something, sound mapping. And I was blown away by that because of course you would need that. Of course you would in order to make everyone have the same auditory experience to visual experience no matter where you're sitting. I mean,
It's like a take on tap mics,
right.
but to a greater extent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, is that a standard? Are we seeing, is that happening more, mapping these performers on stage? Maybe it is.
Let's reach out to a sound designer, bud. To someone who
Let's
sound
ask
designs for
around.
major musicals.
I was blown away. I was amazed. And I was like 10 points to Gryffindor because,
That's
wow.
incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that.
Okay. Irish dancing. Out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys are you giving it?
Like 9. It's Irish. It's
No. Yeah.
like -1 because, like you said, it's not always organically
Yes.
incorporated.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. It's
Yeah.
like-
Couldn't agree more. 9.5. It would have been an 11 or 12 if Michael Flatley made an appearance.
Michael Flatley.
I wonder where he
Just at
is.
the christening, a guest appearance.
I'm the real father. Dun, 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 dun.
He was the baby.
Big Richard Flatley.
Oh my god, it's so good.
He was the baby.
I love that it took you a second. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so funny. Whew. All
Okay,
right.
let's talk about the design.
Woo. Scenic design by Eugene Lee. Costume design by Martin Pakladinas. Lighting design by Kenneth Posner. Sound design by Jonathan Deans. Aerial sequence design by Paul Rubin. Hair design by friend of the podcast, Paul Huntley is back.
Oh, hey, Paul.
And makeup design by another friend of the podcast, Angelina Avalone.
Aw, Angelina.
Welcome back.
Glad to see she's getting work. That's good.
So before we talk about these things, I think it's
Yes.
really important to talk about the budget. So what did you hear that it lost?
So all I heard, I didn't find a number for budget,
Okay.
but I heard that it lost at least 16 million. That's 1/6.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
And then I also heard that the budget was upward of 16 million. So that would mean that they essentially lost the budget.
It wouldn't surprise me, and I think that's one of the big challenges facing this show was probably the cost of actually running it
Yes.
and the cost that it had even sunk into it.
Yeah.
And keeping that running. It faces a lot of shows that spend this much money. It hurt Shrek. It hurt Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if it hurt this.
Well,
I'm
Big
interested.
Fish was $6 million, and that show did not have nearly
the technical elements of this.
Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up before we talked about the design because
Yeah.
in my mind, that's where most of, if not all of the funds went.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about those sets.
There are some incredible sets in this.
Mm-hmm.
There are some mind-blowing sets. However, in my opinion, those sets aren't used for long enough, and instead they end up spending a lot of time in sets that aren't much of anything, in looks that aren't
Yes.
much of anything, so that they can take their sweet time to reset. For example, we're in this pirate ship at the very top, and after that we maybe see that pirate ship once again. Pirate ship's one of the best sets in the show.
Yep.
Then it isn't till like the end of Act 2 we end up in this the Queen's Palace set, and it's incredible.
Yes.
And I was like, why on earth haven't we seen this set yet? And we were watching it with dear friend of the podcast, Ali Fulmick, who works in production management and technical direction quite a bit. And they were like, well, they needed the intermission break to set that up. Like to move major elements of the pirate ship set
Right.
and get the palace set, major elements of the palace set ready to be flown in. Once again, I would compare and contrast with Les Mis, which makes really excellent use of these 2 or 3 major set pieces that it has.
Right.
The set pieces are all here. The design is great. It just isn't functioning for the show.
Yeah, like it's clunky in that sense.
Yeah.
Because we don't stay anywhere long enough to really settle into the environment.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with the way it was designed. I think it was just the size of the design
Yep.
in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I almost would rather like a permanent ship fixture.
Yeah.
And then we'll just play the action in other ways and places, you know? We had a level for the queen, like leave her up there, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's just
Forever.
say the clan lives on the ship.
Yeah.
Great.
Like we buy that.
I buy. Yeah. Easy to buy.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not historically accurate, but it's a freaking musical.
It's a musical.
Yeah.
We're singing all our words.
Absolutely. Let's stay on the really nice set.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad we agree on
I
that.
agree. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
That said, the pieces that are good are
Yeah.
like the best we've seen on this podcast.
Totally.
They're incredible.
Yeah. And that budget, they use that budget.
Absolutely.
Wow.
They're climbing on the set. There's a big sail in the
Yes.
back for a while.
I love the aerial work in on the set
Hard
pieces,
to-
like the
hard not to
climbing
love,
on
yeah.
the mast and
Yeah.
everything. It's really amazing. Is mast the word I'm looking for?
Yep, I
I
think
did
so.
a
You
ship
did it.
thing.
You did a
Good
thing.
job, me.
Costumes as well. Lots of nice costumes.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like I am pretty sure that one of the queen's like wigs is worth more than my car. Right?
Yeah.
Like I would wager a guess that these costumes cost like the amount of a couple of houses in
Yeah.
Winnipeg, in the Winnipeg market.
Like as much as we've made it clear over this podcast that Queen Elizabeth is neither of our favorite part of this show.
Oh, yeah. We need like less than half the amount of Queen Elizabeth time, you know?
But people go bananas for period style English queens.
Oh,
and for
you're
Queen
right.
Elizabeth especially. You know what I mean? There is nothing that people like more than someone playing the queen. What else do I have to say? Codpiece, big codpiece,
Yeah.
palace set.
There it was.
You can climb on the set. Yo ho ho.
Trapdoor.
Big pirate wheel at the start. It's a big
Oh, yeah,
pirate
the wheel.
What a good idea.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. Good lights.
The wigs are good, actually.
Good wigs, good
I'll
lights.
always call attention to those wigs. Oh, you know who would have been great in this show is Carolee Carmelo.
Oh, where was she?
Carmelo cast.
Oh.
Let's quickly discuss lighting.
Yeah. I like the lights.
Me too.
I thought there was a lot of rad light stuff.
Yeah.
Good
So
lights.
there.
Good job, everyone. Yeah. Okay, out of 10.
I'm gonna put them all together. I think
Yep.
that's
I think that's fair.
an okay bet. In theory, it's like an 8,
Yep.
but I'm feeling a little weird about the use of the ship. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll like knock it down to 7.
I feel very good about that. Just design element for design element. Excellent work. 8,
Yeah.
maybe even 9 at some points.
Right.
But a design still has to serve the piece as a whole.
Totally.
And I'm not convinced that this does in every case.
Yeah.
So 7, maybe even 6 for me because I wanted more of the ship.
Okay.
I want more. It's
Yep.
so good.
You
spend
love
so
ships.
much money using
Yeah.
it. Let's go all the time. I'm so excited to talk about performances.
I know, we've been itching to discuss
absolutely.
this, and I'm so excited. Okay, I will just start by quickly listing the bios of all 37 actors in this show,
Okay, go
and
on.
also the 4 swings.
Yep.
If you couldn't tell, that's a huge number of cast members, everyone.
Yeah. For the mid-2000s especially, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And again, this trickles into context, but this is when we're starting to see everything getting scaled back pretty extensively.
Because what's its main competitor on the Broadway stage right now?
Spring Awakening.
Spring Awakening. Yeah.
So these performances.
Yeah.
Obviously, we both love Stephanie J. Block deeply.
Hardly a hot take. I mean, for God's sake.
Yeah, like I would actually be interested to find people who would disagree with us
Yeah,
on this, because
absolutely.
she to me really carries this show.
As well she should. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
She's
I
the
mean,
pirate queen.
She's the pirate queen.
And she delivers 100%. This is, in a perfect world where this show is more successful, this is the women's version of Jean Valjean.
Oh yeah,
As far
absolutely.
as dream weight roles to carry. Yeah.
Ben Brantley thought that when she sang quietly and in a more controlled way, he preferred that to when she got skrelty. But I want it all. I don't care. Give me all of that.
It's an incredible sound.
Yeah.
I love it. It's not effortless,
No.
but the effort's going in the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. Whereas, when we talk about bringing her back, Carolee Carmello,
Yes.
how she digs in, it sounds safe but still emotional.
Yeah. That's not Stephanie J. Block's thing.
No, it's the other end where it's a complete
Yeah.
release.
Yeah.
And it's is that healthy? But we know it is because that's what she does, right?
Yeah.
And I like it.
I love it.
That's what we pay the big bucks for. Someone who's
Absolutely.
teetering on the edge.
Yep. They must wipe their brows when they found Stephanie J. Block. Thank God we've got this person leading the ship. So to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hadley Fraser,
Hadley Fraser.
very accomplished English actor.
I saw this. This is his
Singer?
only Broadway, right?
His only
But
Broadway.
he works a ton in England.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
extensively. Film, TV.
Have you ever seen that Phantom of the Opera at Royal Albert Hall?
No, but I would like to.
It's real nice, and I'm not even a huge Phantom fan.
Is he Raoul or is he?
He's Raoul. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he'd be good.
He's very good. Everyone's very good in that. It's really worth a watch.
Hadley Fraser, yes.
Yep.
I love him vocally.
Yeah, I agree.
His acting is pretty good.
Yep.
I don't really have a lot bad to say about him.
Neither do I. Like you say, there's maybe not outstanding, but also maybe that's just the fault of the show, and overcrowded,
Exactly.
he kind of loses his place.
Yep. How did you like the Queen's right-hand man, Richard?
Big Richard.
Big dick energy.
Big Richard.
Or should I say the six-fingered man?
I know, right?
Right?
Yeah.
The wig, the costume,
Yep.
everything. I'm like, is that Christopher Guest? I'm confused. Is he in this musical?
I liked him a lot. So much so that I wanted, and this is interesting because we'll get to Linda Balgood in a second, who played the Queen, and for all the challenges I have with the Queen being a character, I like her performance. I would have rather the Queen be in it a lot less, and Big Richard be the
Yes.
main villain.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I think he does a nice job.
The ensemble. Let's talk about the ensemble.
Oh, once again, lots to love.
I know.
What is there not to love here?
I love a group of people singing loud together. It's
Yeah.
my favorite. So we get that. They're all very accomplished singers.
I was surprised this cast was so big.
Did it seem small on
Yes.
stage?
Yes, it did.
I have a theory.
Yep.
Half of these people were probably just dancers, and then the other half were the singing ensemble.
Yep.
And
Dancers / gymnasts. who can do the
Exactly.
swings,
And
yep.
so we never saw all of them on stage together, probably until the finale, the bows and everything.
Yep.
So that's probably why it felt smaller than 37 plus 4 swings.
I can dig that. They do great work though.
Yeah. Oh, the Queen. Okay.
Our apologies, Linda Balgord. You did a very nice job. You're also extremely accomplished.
You are
Good
very
job.
accomplished.
Yeah.
We just don't like this character.
No.
It's not really your fault.
It's fascinating because she's the only person in this show who received recognition.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
What, you got a drama desk for this?
Drama Desk
Yeah.
nomination. It fascinates me because it makes me wonder why. I wonder how through that whole show, she's the one that stands out to you when Stephanie J. Block is essentially carrying this thing on her back. I have a hard time understanding, I guess, without being there.
It's that weird Queen thing. That weird
Anyone
she's
who
playing
plays
a
the Queen.
Yeah, it's like it's Shakespeare in Love syndrome.
That's
It's
that's
Judy
such a good
Dame
point,
Judi Dench in
Paul.
Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's
okay.
something about putting on that makeup and portraying that resonates with some people in such a fundamental way.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
royalty in general, if you play royalty, you'll likely be nominated.
Yeah.
Is that an American thing, I wonder? Because their relationship to the monarchy is very different. Like, we have a Canadian context for this, whereas, like, Americans, I think, have this, like, this strange relationship with the monarchy. I don't know. I might be
Or is it a
speculating. but-
generational thing?
Oh,
Because
sure.
I don't know about you, my mom's like kind of a Anglophile, not as much as a lot of people, but a lot of people of that generation, of a few generations older than us, are very much Anglophiles.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
So out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys are we giving these performances?
We couldn't find a friggin' bad thing to say, so 9.
Yeah, 9.
Yeah.
Because the flaws, I don't think, fall to the performances.
Yeah, and it would only be a 10 if it was like outstanding across the board. Stephanie J. Block's the only one for me who's like, this is outstanding work.
Yes.
But everyone is very good.
Yeah.
So 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
So, Tony's, because we've just gotten through, this happens surprisingly often. I didn't know what to expect when we started this podcast, of a show with consistently high ranks.
Yep.
It's hard to find serious fault. A show with consistently high ranks that couldn't crack 100 performances in New York and lost $16 million.
Oh my gosh.
What the hell happened?
Cameron McIntosh happened because that year,
Yeah.
so this year of eligibility was from, I guess it would be May 2006 until end of April 2007.
So it just squeaked into this year of eligibility.
Yes. So the other shows playing, so the big ticket, like we talked about, Spring Awakening.
Could not be more different
Yep.
from this show in so many ways.
And more different from pretty much anything we were seeing at that time.
Absolutely.
And so I think there was a contemporary feel to this old story that was really like, it was just interesting. We hadn't
Yeah.
seen it, we hadn't heard it. And so
I remember you and I were both prime target audience for Spring
Yeah.
Awakening at the time, and I was never as huge of a fan as some people. But
And,
there's still
yeah.
no question. It was like, this is something very special.
So talk about a pendulum swing, my God.
Absolutely.
With Pirate Queen. So the other shows that were nominated that year, so Spring Awakening won,
Yep.
but the other shows that were nominated were Curtains, Grey Gardens, and Mary Poppins.
Oh, that's
So-
so fascinating.
So if you're wanting your big spectacle musical, I think Mary Poppins is why Pirate Queen is losing out on some
Yeah.
of that audience.
If you're like a fan of Broadway as an art form and you want to
Mm-hmm.
see the star go and carry the show, want to see especially a woman go and carry
Yep.
the show, why aren't you going to see Christine Ebersole in Grey Gardens just crush it?
Exactly.
And honestly, I can even get behind Stephanie J. Block should have gotten a nomination.
Oh, yeah.
But Christine Ebersole in Grey Gardens is outstanding.
The other show that was playing at this time that was not nominated for Best Musical was Legally Blonde.
That's bananas that it wasn't nominated, because Legally Blonde is a
Yeah.
really nice show.
It's actually a great show.
It's a great show.
You know, we're going on a school trip to New York. We're going to go see Legally Blonde. We're not seeing Pirate Queen.
Not a
That's
chance.
boring. That's my dad's musical.
Absolutely. We're 16 years old. We're going on a school trip. We're going to see Legally Blonde with the school. We're
Yep.
sneaking off to go see Spring Awakening.
Yep.
Pirate Queen's not even on our radar.
Right.
And whose radar is it on, with Grey Gardens being this bizarre... and I love Grey Gardens as a
Me
show. I
too.
love it. What else did we see this with? We saw this with...
Ragtime and Parade had a bit of a crossover.
Yeah, where, yes, exactly. So it's like that thing where Ragtime was taking a lot of Parade's audience.
Yeah.
Even though they're not super the same as far as content goes, as far as overreaching tourist expectations, they may as
Right.
well be the same show.
Yeah.
So I think there's no question in my mind when it was here, when it hit Broadway, has a lot to do with why it wasn't able to crack 100.
It's like the days of the 80s Poparetta are behind us.
Yep.
And we're ready to move into this new contemporary pop rock even style.
With Spring Awakening, or at the very least, quirky chamber musical with Grey Gardens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What
0
else?
noms for
'Kay,
Pirate Queen.
Who hosted that year?
No one.
No one.
The MCs, so there was no real host.
Yeah.
It was like anyone who was introducing was the host. So everyone hosted. Anyway, I'm sad she wasn't nominated. I think.
And it is bananas that this show got shut out. I have trouble.
I do too, actually. I really
I,
have a hard time with that.
Even though I agree with a lot of those wins, Spring Awakening taking Best Musical, great. Christine Ebersole taking Best Actress, fantastic.
Yeah.
To not have any noms is very silly.
Yeah. It's
I think this
surprising.
is-
Even sets, I'm like,
Once again, take away the Les Mis context, which
That's
you
right.
should be doing for award shows. And there's no way this shouldn't be compared to curtains.
I know.
Come on now.
It's like, what even? And David Hyde Pierce won 4 curtains.
Well, sure, and that's no shade. You know what I mean?
know,
but
but it just makes you think.
this and Legally Blonde too. Legally Blonde's a real nice show. Very interesting, very fascinating. Should this be a musical?
Yeah, I think I'm okay
Hell
with
yeah,
that.
It should. Absolutely, it should.
I like it. I think
Yeah.
with some different choices in some ways, this could be actually a really entertaining show.
Yep.
We could take it off its pedestal a little bit. I think it's a little haughty, like it's a bit on a high horse. I think
wonder
if we
it could do that thing that they did with Parade after it was done its Broadway run.
Yeah,
where
totally.
the currently licensed version of Parade is stripped down and reworked, and by all accounts, much more functional as a show.
I love that.
And once again, telling an important story and reworking it, taking it out of, both of them I would say exist under this Les Mis shadow, or this
Yeah.
ragtime shadow, or whatever the case, the very successful historical epic. And I think trying to remove it from that would be better. Let Les Mis be Les Mis. This is the same guys, but let them do a different story.
I would love that.
So, is this a flop? Is this a secret bop? Or do we need to make this stop?
I'm caught between a rock and a hard place
I
here, and we've
know,
had this
I
conversation before, where I believe it can be 2 of these things at the same time. And I
Yep.
think Pirate Queen is a prime example of how it's both flop,
Yeah.
this production, but a total secret bop in terms
Yep.
of what it could be.
I receive what you're saying. I'm not quite as convinced, because I'm not sure, at least not without another rewrite of the score.
That's true, yeah.
I think there needs to be a little more work done and a few more emotion songs and a few less plot songs. Mm-hmm. So as it stands right now, I think this is a flop, but it's so close to being secret bop. I
Yeah,
can taste
like,
it.
let's
you know?
make it a bop.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to tell you, I am so happy that we did this show right
Yeah.
now, because we're all very busy people. We're very stressed in our lives.
the least,
and
yeah.
I felt so happy to be able to genuinely compliment a show that I didn't know about.
I agree.
It was like such a blessing to get to talk about it when we actually all kind of like it.
And to learn about a new show. The
Yeah.
thing I love about this podcast in general is learning about a new show every 2 weeks.
And of course, it can be stressful at times where you think, did I do enough research? Did
Yeah.
I look into this enough? But I feel like nothing beats an emotional reaction. And it seems like we all kind of had positive ones. So, yay, Pirate Queen.
I will say my biggest reaction, I just want to compliment whichever person was like, let's get Stephanie J. Block in period clothing holding a sword.
Yeah, right?
Like, I'm just saying, like, if the lesbians found out about this show,
They would be big
it never
fans.
would have flopped.
I was just going to say, like, oh, do I have a third crush now?
Exactly. Like,
That we're going to talk. Okay, we talked
more
about Jonathan
women
Taylor Thomas.
in period
Michael
clothing.
Flatley,
Flatley.
Ramin Karimloo.
Yeah.
Fourth crush. Yep.
Yes.
So as we're wrapping up housekeeping, I wanted to bring us back to our last episode.
Yes.
Where we dissected 3 lesser-known Broadway
Revive or
flops.
Die.
Revive or Die. I've had a few people reach out now, pointing out that there are many musicals that have had sequels.
Are they mad that you said that you didn't know?
They
that
wanted
how
to.
many
They wanted
there
to be
were?
sure to point out that there were many that I had forgotten, including a few that I'm embarrassed to have forgotten,
Oh, no,
including
tell me.
The Best Little Whorehouse.
Yes, which we are actually going to talk
which we're
about
gonna
on
talk
this
about.
pod eventually.
And also, of course, Falsettos, which is a sequel.
Of course.
Falsettos, the first,
Oh,
the
yeah.
first iteration of it in Trousers,
Okay,
was
but
a flop.
that's tricky.
And then the next
Yes.
2 parts became Falsettos,
You're right.
which was a mad
March
success
of
and
the
is
falsetto.
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
Did we forget anything else? Would you like to correct us? Please let us know. It would be our pleasure to engage with that. What other sequels did we miss?
Yeah.
I'd also like to thank a friend of the podcast, Elliot Lazar, for reaching out to let us know that if we ever need any librettos or scores for any of the musicals on our list, he actually owns stuff from Dude and Bring Back
Yes.
Birdie.
Does he actually?
Yeah.
Nothing from Big Borrow or Steal. That one is still under lock and key in the Library of Congress.
Library of Congress.
We are going to
yeah.
be hosting, if you subscribe to our Patreon, you'll be the first to know about our National Treasure style heist.
Yes. Oh my God. That's amazing.
But thank you to friend of the podcast, Elliot Lazar, for that.
Yes.
The other thing I want to say, and Paul, remember when I texted you about doing a Great Big Sea musical and how it was like hit or miss because I didn't know if you would be like one of the people that loves Great Big Sea or hates, because I really don't think there's a ton of middle ground there.
No. And I love them. I've seen them 3 times live.
And I'm so glad. But I wonder if the Grania O'Malley story might be a wonderful vehicle for
As
a Great
told
Big
through the
Sea
music of Great Big Sea.
jukebox. So I don't know. Like, I wasn't sure story-wise if that makes sense, but I actually think it would be pretty
It totally
amazing.
makes sense. Like as Grania is heading off to jail, like we just start hearing like, how did we get from saying I love you?
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, so maybe this is our project once we're wrapped with everything else we're doing. Oh, thank you all so much.
Thank you all so much. Join us next week.
Oh my gosh.
I'm very excited when we're going to talk about an incredibly fascinating piece of Broadway history, the Scottsboro Boys, with a really cool guest, a dear friend of mine. Jill doesn't know him yet, but I'm very confident they're going to be very fast friends because he's just incredible.
Cannot wait to get
Hal
to know him.
Rogers is going to join us. He's a very cool performer and composer, and he has a lot of really fascinating thoughts on this piece. I can't wait for y'all to tune in.
Join us next time.
Bye now.
Hi everyone, this is producer Daphne speaking. Thank you all so much for listening to Monkeys and Playbills, the show where we take a look at Broadway musicals that had 100 performances or fewer before closing. To learn more about the show, you can follow us on Instagram at Monkeys and Playbills Pod, on Twitter at Monkey Playbills, or email us at monkeysandplaybillspod@gmail.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/monkeysandplaybills. Monkeys and Playbills is proud to be a Village Conservatory for Music Theater podcast. Original music for the show is provided by Paul DeGers, and the show is produced and edited by Daphne Finlayson. Thank you all so much for listening, and join us next week where we take on the Scottsboro Boys.